Went to MLB.com, saw the title, Most Fascinating Players in the Game. And Will Leitch, I had to chat with you about it because anytime you make a list, Twitter's going to do their thing. We talked about faces in the game earlier, and they're already ready to go. So these are in no particular order, right? And we'll start with Randall Grichuk on the list. We give love to CJ Cron, and rightfully so. But you look at Baseball Reference, Randall Grichuk killing the ball. What do you see lately?
Yeah, it's fun. You think of there was a big thing a couple of years ago that the Cardinals had traded away all these good outfielders, whether it's Randy Arozarena or Tommy Pham or Oscar Mercado, even Luke Voigt. But the best of them may have been Randall Grichuk, right? He's really terrific, hitting the cover off the ball right now. He's traded for Ramil Tapia just before the season started. He's playing a great center field. Here's my favorite factoid about Randall Grichuk. He's roughly the same age as Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant we think of as a superstar. Don't think of Randall Grichuk that way. Grichuk has 8 fewer homers career than Chris Bryant. It's very strange to think because they're pretty much the same age. Grichuk's really had a better career than people realize. He's off to a terrific start.
D-Row interviewed him in a Cardinals uniform in spring training. You remember your first question? He said, "How are you so jacked?" I'm like, where do we go from there? That's for him.
Why was that your first question for me today? I'm just asking.
How are you so jacked? Well,
Thank you.
Tell me.
So many. I don't have time to get into it.
How do I count the ways? David Robertson has had an interesting career, Will. He was a guy taking over for Mariano, not a job that many people would want, but he was effective, not just an arm out of the pen. He hasn't been forever.
Yeah, it's funny to think that, the last World Baseball Classic, David Robertson was the closer for the Team USA. I think that's been forgotten a little bit because he's had Tommy John surgery since then. He was kind of out of baseball for a couple of years. He was pitching in the Atlantic League. He actually pitched in the Olympics in Tokyo, and now he's back for the Cubs, and he's been fantastic. It really looks like he has not lost a step at all. What you think about how hard it was to be the guy that took over for Mariano Rivera, and it was great. And it was that contract that he had with the Phillies that really didn't work out, where he had the Tommy John surgery, but he's worked his way all the way back. He's kind of the best pitcher they have in their bullpen right now, and he's kind of taken over that closer job. And, for what it's worth, pitched the last World Baseball Classic. There's another one next year. So, hey, maybe David Robertson, you can come back.
We saw your list, and the guys saw Daniel Vogelbach, and they said, they kind of leaned in and said, interesting. He just needed a place to play every day, and we're seeing what he can do on the field lately.
Yeah, Daniel Vogelbach is definitely the person that if I go to a game with my older uncle, he's like, wait, this guy's the leadoff man? How is that possible? A lot of people have grown up with the idea of thinking of Vince Coleman as your ideal leadoff man. It is fair to say that Daniel Vogelbach is the literal opposite human being of Vince Coleman in every way, but he's been terrific. This has finally been the opportunity for Vogelbach to play full time. He's been leading off for the Pirates, and he's been great. He's had the power, but he's also getting on base. And the Pirates are in third place right now, and they're a little bit better than I think people have given the credit for. The bullpen's been a big part of that, but really it's been Vogelbach to be able to lead off that roster. It's so funny to see him and Ke'Bryan Hayes, another person who's an entirely different type of player, to be kind of leading this Pirates team.
A bright spot for their club. You guys are fans of Daniel Vogelbach.
We need him on the show.
We need him on the show. We've decided. Very into him. I read your column, and you mentioned Jurickson Profar as a post-hype prospect. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, there was a time where there was this huge debate in baseball. It's basically been a decade now of who was the better prospect, Jurickson Profar or the late Oscar Taveras, the Cardinals outfielder. And it was a big debate who was going to be the biggest superstar. And then Profar, just like a lot of Rangers prospects, never really kind of took off. It's funny to think they ultimately traded him to the A's. Imagine the situation of telling a Rangers fan in 2012, "Oh, we're going to trade Jurickson Profar to your division rival, and you're not going to be upset." He didn't really did that well for the A's, but he's really been huge for the Padres this year. They obviously have needed help with Fernando Tatis out. It's funny to think that up until I think yesterday, Profar led the Padres in homers, which is definitely not what anyone would have thought. Yeah. But I think that's the thing. This is the thing about prospects. If they don't hit quickly, we start to worry about them. But he's really kind of come into his own this year.
The team's home run leader, I would not have guessed. I don't know how many people would, right? I remember J.P. Crawford coming up with the Phillies, and he was the guy. And it's kind of been slow and steady, and we're seeing it. We're seeing what the hype was all about now, Will.
Yeah, pretty much everyone on my list. It's J.P. Crawford that's having the best year. And again, if you'd said heading into the year that of all the Mariners, he'd be the one up to the great start. Remember, Crawford was not just one of the guys that you thought was going to be able to take over for Jimmy Rollins back in the Phillies days. Remember the whole Phillies rebuild after they got rid of all their older players, when they finally gave up the ghost on that, he was supposed to be at the center of that, and most of those prospects really didn't pay off. And I think Crawford was seen as somewhat as a disappointment or even as a failure, but he's been fantastic for the Mariners this year. He's basically been their best offensive player. You think of all the prospects they've got coming on. And so I think that's good to remember for these prospects as well. Like with Profar, Crawford was seen someone that just never lived up to the hype, and now he's actually surpassed that hype. It's just taken a longer route to get there.
I'm told that you missed one. My co-host is very upset that he's not on your list. He says he's very fascinating.
I'm extremely fascinating, Will Leitch.
Okay.
And I think that there needs to be, I expect a retraction and all those other journalistic things that you writers do.
Writers, Will Leitch, don't listen to him. You're the best. Thanks so much. Go to MLB.com for the full column. We threw him off guard.